I'm Fletcher Rhoden, and this is Quotes and Quips. Today, words of wisdom from St. Paul. Quotes and Quips is brought to you by my website, FletcherRhoden.com. That's where you'll find links to things like my author page at Amazon.com. That's where you can buy my books in paperback or for Kindle or in audiobook format. There's also a link to my Spotify artist page where you can download my music in its various subgenres. I've got new music for 2024. But you can download the music from any of your favorite download sites all over the internet. At my website, there's free music that you can get there exclusively. So check it out. Okay, well, today's words of wisdom come to us from St. Paul, the first born-again Christian who wrote letters to the Gentiles of the region. His letters make up more than half of the New Testament. And he's generally considered one of the great theological writers. Now, whether or not you believe in God or not, or if you believe in God but not Jesus, doesn't really matter. The Bible has a lot to share. It's got a lot of great writing in it. It's got a lot of interesting parable. Jesus spoke only in parables. It's got a lot of military strategy, which is oft used by generals even today. It's got some of the greatest poetry ever written and some of the most oft quoted poetry that has ever been written. Whether or not you believe that a man called David slew a Philistine champion whose name was Goliath, which totally could have happened, probably did. But if you don't believe it, because you don't believe that a snake can talk, then that's okay. Doesn't really matter what your faith system is, or even if you're an atheist or an agnostic. My father used to say that every educated man should have read the Bible. I think actually what he said is every educated man should have the Bible on his bookshelf, but just having a book on your shelf don't make you educated. In any case, once you set aside the notions of myth or lore or your belief system, you can appreciate the Bible for what it is, and that's a compendium of some of the most profound and well-known writing that there is. Now, it was written, maybe not by the hand of God, likely not. Some people say that Moses himself wrote the first 5 books. Hard to say. But somebody wrote them. And the New Testament is certainly written by, in large part, by this man, Paul of Tarsus. Saul of Tarsus was his name originally, and then he became Paul after his road to Damascus moment, and after that he became St. Paul after he was killed. So, his quote comes to us from his first letter to the Corinthians, the people of Corinth. And this is 13:13 of 1 Corinthians. And Paul tells us this. And now, 3 things abide: hope, faith, and love. These 3. And of these, the greatest is love. And now 3 things abide: hope, faith, and love. And of these, the greatest is love. Well, this is my favorite Bible quote. It speaks to so much about the human condition, and that how even, now all these years later, hope, faith, and love really do propel so much of us through our lives. Because when he writes, and now these things abide, they prevail, they endure, they survive. And they do. The politics of the world have drastically changed. The the men and women of that time are all long gone. The only thing practically that remains are the historical artifacts, the people who are descendant of the original citizenry of whatever national origin, and the historical record, which comes to us in part from ancient Egypt's record keeping, and of the books which we now think of as the Old Testament. Then the books which we think of as the New Testament, again, a lot of them are letters. They weren't really books. They're just called books. Anyway, so, and now these things abide. Hope, faith, and love, these three. And of these, the greatest is love. So, sound a little hokey? I get it. It does. But it's true. Because again, of everything that existed then, hope, faith, and love are basically the same things that still remain intact. And what he was also saying, however, if you take this, again, this is a two-part quote. A lot of these quotes can be divided into two parts, and each part has its own significance. So the first part, and now these things abide, hope, faith, and love, these three, it's because their world was so challenging. It was in such tumult and upheaval. They were facing great repression and a moment of historic liberation, as Paul saw it. And that's what he urged the Gentiles of the Greek Isles to embrace. And also the Mediterranean, Rome, Book of Romans, you know. He wrote letters to these various regions and went around. So he was trying to instill in the people of his home country that they should remain mindful of hope and faith and love, because the rest of it would pass. The rest of it was chaotic and challenging, but it would pass. And the second half of these, the greatest is love, sort of a grace note to the thing, but it reminds us that with love you can have hope and faith. Without love for, you know, they used to say back then, love God and love your neighbor. Those are the two of the greatest commandments. Love God and love each other. He didn't say, because they asked Jesus said this, he didn't say, remain hopeful and have faith. Those are the two greatest commandments. Love was a cornerstone of each. And those are the two greatest ones. He did say, you know, he did say to Peter, why do you doubt? Or why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? So, you know, he was into faith and he was into hope. But love was, it was love that was the greatest of those three. Now, Ricky Gervais and other people might tell you, well, geez, you can't really measure love or hope or faith. Certainly not faith. They'd tell you that since those words were written in the Bible, they're automatically foolish and stupid. Just because they're written in the Bible, and the Bible is just a book of stories to frighten children with, talking snakes and vengeful space demons. And none of it can be true because those things can't physically possibly be true. Because a snake cannot physically talk. Okay, well, there is myth in every culture. George Washington didn't chop down a cherry tree. Doesn't mean he wasn't George Washington. Abe Lincoln never walked 10 miles in the snow to return a library book. That didn't happen. They didn't give him a library card. no libraries really that, that was, come on. That's a myth. Doesn't mean that the Gettysburg Address isn't a great document. So you can't just write off everything in the Bible as folly, because some of it is profound and wise and good to remember, especially in times of tumult as they were having then and as we are having now. Hope, faith, and love. But of these three, the greatest is love. And I agree. I know it sounds really Ringo Starr, peace and love, you know. I get that. And it's easy to say. It's hard just to go around loving everybody and everything all the time. And peace and hope and faith are really hard to maintain those things at times. That's why hope and faith especially crumble, I think, more than love. I think that's why love is the greatest of the three, because it is more enduring. It's more apt to endure. People lose their faith all too quickly. They lose their hope all too quickly. Sometimes they can't let go of their love at all. That's not always the best thing for them. Talk about doubt being an unpleasant condition. But it is still love that is strongest and most compelling of those things, all of which cannot be measured, none of which can be brought into a museum or presented in a court of law as proof of anything. So probably they don't even exist. But if they don't, I don't know what kind of world that is. Let's find out next Monday at noon when I'm back with another Quotes and Quips. I do it every week. I leave up the reruns so you can go back and watch them. I have another show from last year too called Tracking the Lone Wolf. It's on its own YouTube channel, Tracking the Lone Wolf. Check that out. Also my website and my books and my music. Check it all out. Have fun. And come back next time. Until then, bye, Mary.